Hello, and welcome to the Silver and Black Coffee Hour. We are a San Antonio Spurs basketball podcast based here in Austin, Texas. And so it was a big week for us, Aaron Blackerby. How you feeling?
Man, a little tired between covering the team and covering my day job. It was a lot, but I had a great time. I really enjoyed kind of seeing more of the machinations of the team, and it was a lot of fun. I cannot keep enjoying how much these Austin Spurs weeks are here in town. So I had a great time. How about you?
I feel you, brother. I'm exhausted. There's been a lot of burning the candle at both ends. I'm running low on wax. But the flame is there. This always brings the fire out of me. You asked, me about how I was feeling about it, and I was like, yeah, not my first rodeo, but anytime you get on the bowl, it's exciting, man. It's truly an honor to be in there covering this team. Zach Montana, our fan of the people, put on a suit and put in the work this week, and he did fantastic. He's feeling a bit under the weather.
Big
Um,
shout out to Zach. A little behind the scenes for us was we were like, we're gonna cover the game Friday night and then Saturday morning where we're gonna record. And then we were like, everybody like texted each other like when welcome, like, yo, I'm like so exhausted right now. So we're like doing it a day later.
um, and you know, we were Zach was at shoot around when the news broke that Victor Wembanyama would miss the rest of the season with a deep vein thrombosis, a DVT in his shoulder. Um, into the blood clot. It is, according to the team, they're not concerned about his long-term health because of this. They were able to, identify it early on and treat it. But he's going to be on blood thinners, and so won't be able to play for a little bit here. And then after these games, we got news that Greg Popovich is not expected to return to the team this season, leaving, you know, any prospect of a return kind of up in the air. So this has been a heavy week in Spurs basketball. Um, I've spent a lot of time around this team in the last 5 years. I've been there for some hard and weird days. The um, the mood around the team, I think, was pretty somber because they uh, they spend so much time with Vic. They talked about this, he loves being with the guys, right? He was the first one to text him after they beat the Suns on Thursday night. And so for um and also, there's so much excitement, and rightfully so, around this team that had just acquired De'Aaron Fox, who finally got to play a game for the Spurs in Texas. He we sat with him at the team hotel on Wednesday, and he was like, "I'm still trying to get my head around this rodeo road trip thing. This is crazy, man."
Tom, you got
And
him to drop I mean, you didn't make him, but he dropped an F-bomb on your question, which was hilarious.
that was, and we can play the clip here. But yeah, him, so a guy like that, he's playing the point guard position, right? He's an all-star level player playing a position that, leadership is sort of an inherent requirement of the job, right? So I wanted to ask him about how he approaches that, and, how he establishes himself on a young team like this. And he had just an absolutely hilarious all-timer quote about these young kids making him feel a little bit older than 27 sometimes.
Darren, how do you treat the responsibility of leadership? Like, what's your version of leadership, and how do you, come in and establish yourself as a leader on a new team?
I mean, well, the first thing is, Mitch told me come in and be myself, do what I do best, and obviously, they've scouted against me and played against me, so they know some of the things that I can do, but go out there and basically not try to fit in. And two, I mean, we have such a young group of guys, so like some of them were like, bro, I watched you when you were in high school, and I told this to DeMar when we signed him. So I'm like, oh my god. But no, I mean, that this group of guys, they have confidence in me to go out there and they know what I'm capable of. So for me, it's being able to do that and then leading with my voice. And obviously we have CP and HB. HB who's won championships, and CP who's basically been in the playoffs just about every year in his career. So you definitely have guys that have been there and done that, and also can pretty much teach from their perspective. But for me, who's probably going to play the most minutes, and being out there and just trying to be able to lead by example and also leading with my voice with such a young group of guys. But it's cool. They make you feel like you're a little older. Like we're playing Charlotte, and Taj Gibson catches the ball, and no one goes to contest his mid-range shot. And someone on the bench was like, "These kids don't know who fucking Taj Gibson is." And I'm like, "Yo, this is crazy," because like some of them are really that young and like didn't watch him in his earlier years or throughout his prime. So it is funny. It is a bit funny.
I've been struck by De'Aaron's honesty and approach, and the way he gives answers and details. In
He's a talker, man. Like he's not afraid to chat, and I don't know if that's because he's like in a new work situation and maybe feels invigorated by that. But I mean, he is someone you ask a question, he's going to give you a good answer,
and
and a thoughtful answer, not just like, oh, this is a good clip, but like he will go in depth to it.
there feels like
I really appreciate that.
there's like a mutual respect that he has, and there was one thing that jumped out. It was, Friday night late, he's the last interview, and it's like, all right, last question, we got a bus, and there was a student reporter from UT, and he had wanted to get a question in, and De'Aaron saw that and was like, hold on, I got him, and he was asked about the facilities in the city, and gave a good answer on it. And it was just cool to see him like having that moment with that kid. He's you spend a little bit of time around De'Aaron Fox, and he seems like a pretty solid, upstanding dude, and really interesting to talk to about the game of basketball. And we had a lot of interesting people to talk basketball with this week. Kevin Durant was in town at the basketball practice facility that's named after him on UT campus. Chris Paul was here, and talking and thinking about all that, and getting into it with Kevin Durant, which was funny. But that Thursday game, I mean, it was the news drops that Vic is done for the season, and the energy was weird and somber and tough. But we saw these guys.
There were so many mixed things on Thursday, though, too. You get the Vic news, and then the game is essentially to honor Kevin Durant coming back to Austin and playing in Austin. And so the crowd at that game was very mixed between KD, Suns fans, and Spurs fans. I'd honestly say that, like, when watching that game, it felt pretty half and half, which was also like an interesting dynamic to the game. Not that like there weren't Spurs fans that were cheering. There were plenty of them there. Just fascinated by, the amount of Kevin Durant fans that were cheering. And I mean, we could use this, I guess, to just talk about that game. That was the win of the week, which I think we all called 2-0 last week. So that was great. But coming into this game, the Spurs actually played spoiler to them. We had kind of this amazing game from Keldon, Jeremy playing on KD and Booker, Fox the closer, and then also maybe some people's new favorite player. I don't know if Tom, he is your new favorite player, but Bismack Biyombo, and putting bodies on people. You kept talking about that the whole game. So what do you got to say about that game?
Man, so on the crowd, right? I think it's definitely KD being there was a huge deal. And it was a huge deal for like people in Austin, right? I think, having been to and covered a lot of these Spurs weeks in Austin, um, I can say that this one felt like it was better attended by uh like Austin media folks. Um, and KD was a big part of that, I think. Um, so it was it was interesting to see. I think the crowd balance was definitely a Spurs crowd. But it was, there were competing crowd pops, right? It felt almost like a Subway Series game,
Yeah.
for me is what I could equate it to. Like, definitely mixed territory. And, Mitch Johnson basically said, like, you know, we knew there were gonna be KD fans. There's always KD fans, right? There's always, um, you talk about these superstar players, um, but I mean, Jeremy Sohan did a fantastic job on basically locking him up a little bit in this game, and as much as you can, a guy like Kevin Durant, right? And so
Yeah.
we
There were
we got
there were a couple of times where I thought he was going to get hot, especially in the third when he hit, I think, like a couple back-to-back threes. I was like, okay, like he's been kind of dicking around, like, and then next thing you know, he gets locked up, and like he just never seemed. I mean, I guess he was engaged in the game on some level because of the shenanigans between him and Chris Paul, but it was, I mean, a fairly quiet game other than like Royce O'Neal going off, which was unexpected. So
AD's buckets are loud, right? Because his game is so beautiful and everybody's watching, and especially, in a place like Austin where like there are a lot of people hanging on whatever he's doing, it's like those buckets feel gigantic. But then you look up and you're like, oh, he only has like, 20 some points. Like, they're doing a decent job on him. And Jeremy was a big part of that. He uh basically we got to hear from Mitch Johnson directly after this game about the defense that he played and the competitive drive. And then the next day before the game, I wanted to ask him basically about his versatility, and his willingness to take on different roles. And Mitch actually went into like quite a bit of detail there about stuff that we've been seeing and talking about on this show for a while. So I want to show you guys that.
Coach, Jeremy started, games at point guard last year, and this year with, backup center depth challenge recently, you've gone to him there. What's it like to have a guy who not only is versatility his superpower, but also he seems to just accept whatever role is needed from him?
Jeremy's versatility is, as you said, one of his most valuable traits. He's been a heck of a teammate in terms of us challenging that versatility at times and stretching as far as we can. I know sometimes it's hard when people can't get a direct answer or put things in a box. Jeremy's just a basketball player. There's been times we could say he's a shooting guard and the center guards him on other teams, so then what position is he? He's the center, but then he guards the point guard. And so whether it's where the game has kind of gone or just where our team has, especially with when you added Victor and his versatility and unique skill set, I think the position stuff sometimes gets a little overblown. But in terms of the versatility, I think Jeremy is a puzzle piece that allows you to put a lot of different combinations around him or him with, and then in addition to that, ask a lot of things of him in terms of his role on the court. And he's been able to answer a lot of those different responsibilities and challenges that we put in front of him.
You mentioned specifically him playing center and guarding the other team's point guard, which jumped out. You were playing the Hawks, and he was, picking up Trey. I've never seen guarding the opposing star point guard with the center by design. Like how did that plan concept develop for you guys?
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was trying to refer to is we don't look at Jeremy as a center, a power forward, whatever, point guard. He's a guy that can guard a lot of positions. And offensively, he's a connector that can be a unique puzzle piece with a lot of different people. And you want to try to maximize his strengths offensively, and then obviously defensively, he's going to guard main guys. And in that game, it was Trae Young, obviously, was the guy that we wanted to get him some possessions guarding.
Yeah, that was really cool. Talking about, Sohan's versatility, but, one of the other things I wanted to talk about from this game was De'Aaron Fox. I think when first hearing about the Wemby news, and it's like, shit, like, what is this team going to do? And then I was like, wait, De'Aaron Fox is on our team now, too. Like, it's not guaranteed all games are losses now. We had this dude who, one, I think is one of the coolest players in the NBA, just to like watch aesthetically between how fast he is, the way he moves, the way he can take over a game. I don't think we've had a legit um, shot creator like him in quite some time. Maybe honestly, since like DeMar DeRozan in some ways, like uh, from a guy who like you're like, well, that is probably the best guy to shoot it and go get a bucket. And one of the things that, especially in the fourth, when he started to take over and he had double digit scoring there, I was like, this is the guy where he's going to take these coulda, woulda, coulda games over. And we've seen that a lot with this team this year, where it's like their record would be such and such if they just did this. And I'm not really here to litigate that because our record is what our record is. But looking at a dude like De'Aaron Fox, and there were two other funny parts of this game, and I'll kind of talk to him first about him and Grayson Allen's little tete-a-tete. Uh, Grayson got mad that he got tripped by De'Aaron. I thought it was inadvertent in the moment.
I mean, this is something I feel strongly about. I think that if somebody commits a foul, but the victim is Grayson Allen, I think that should be allowed. Like,
Agreed.
You know that clip of Allen Iverson crossing over MJ? Like, tripping Grayson Allen, it must feel like that, Like using a guy's signature move on him in that way. I thought it was cool. But anyway, like that was fun.
That was cool.
That game got chippy.
The other cool part of that game with Grayson Allen was when De'Aaron Fox threw his ass into the first row. He blocked his shot, and then he was Grayson was like trying to get back in. Fox did something, either he chicken winged him or something, and he was in the front row, and I was like, okay, that's a player on my team now. So I really enjoyed that. The other one, not De'Aaron Fox related though, was Stephon Castle cramming on Bol Bol and then pointing at him and laughing from that. But we did talk to Mitch as well about how to be coaching during the Stars takeover in the post-game presser. So we'll have y'all check that out here.
Coach, we haven't mentioned De'Aaron tonight, but he kind of took over down the stretch there and brought it home. When you see a guy of that caliber taking over, do you just sort of let him cook? Does it, what are you doing as a coach in those situations?
Yeah, I think he does such a good job of being able to create an advantage just one-on-one. And when you see him and Chris and those guys also still put the spacing behind it, the nuance behind it. One time when they were going to pre-rotate, Jeremy was about to cut. Maybe that would have been a pass. They ended up fouling him. But when you're able to have that type of talent and be able to create an advantage, but then also have some organization and structure behind it, that's when you're starting to become pretty good late in games and tough to guard, and that's something we hope to continue to build upon.
Yeah, and I think that was a really thoughtful answer. And it's cool to see that structure building, right? It was like, wow, there was so much tumultuous conditions in this game, and they put it all together. They came together as a cohesive unit. Keldon Johnson had fantastic energy in this game. Everybody felt connected. They won the possession battle, which De'Aaron Fox had talked about. And then Friday night against the Pistons, the flip was script on this one. And Pistons, good team. I mean, they're fun. Their Cade is great. And it's the second game of back-to-back for the Spurs. A little bit of
Babadook came out.
Yeah, it happens, and we were kind of expecting that, but what jumped out to me when I was watching this was like, it didn't seem like there were tired legs as much as it was, lapses, miscommunications, mental things. And that's something that like I got to pick Mitch's brain about afterward. And he had a pretty fun quote here.
Second game of a back-to-back, usually you think about the physical exhaustion and fatigue, but it seemed like there were more like mental mistakes tonight. What do you think was the main factor that went into the kind of stagnant performance?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think that when fatigue, it can hit your legs or your brain. What happened first, the chicken or the egg? And I think we saw a little bit of that tonight. And again, you give those guys credit. They came out, and sometimes you may expect a little bit of that on a back-to-back, but they played a clean game, and they were super physical. So it was a little bit of probably a double-edged sword on that. Not only us maybe letting our guard down in some of those aspects you referred to, but they being very good in those aspects. So it was a disadvantage for us. The turnovers hurt. I did think we missed some good shots, and that probably, whether we were up at one point, maybe could have stretched it out more, or got us back into the game at times. We missed some free throws, and the third quarter definitely got away from us.
I'd agree with you, Tom. I actually rewatched the game yesterday to kind of get like a better understanding. And when I think back to kind of the comparison between the Suns game and how we won that versus how we lost the Detroit game, I mean, it really does just come down to size. There was talks from Keldon about like we're going to need to like gang rebound. We're going to need to get better about that. But at the end of the day, you're able to throw out Jalen Duran. You're able to throw out Isaiah Stewart. Cade Cunningham is huge. One of the other things that they were employing, and I assume that teams are going to start doing this. So look for this down this last stretch of 28 games. The Spurs historically are known for not going after offensive rebounds. Most of the time, the shot goes up. Spurs are getting back on defense, regardless of what happens. The Pistons, when a shot went up, they would have one of their bigs and Asar Thompson come crash the boards. And there were many times where the offensive rebounding discrepancy really was like the problem with this game, because looking at the box score, like in almost every other category, we were neck and neck with them. Even at the half, it was 62-63, and we played a bad first quarter and came back in the second. And to your point, like, I don't think that there was a lacking of energy. Once again, when I watched the game over again, I was like, there's not energy lacking, but there is just some sort of defensive miscommunication going on here. And so really going to have to figure out how to win the possession battle. And De'Aaron Fox talked to us about that after the game as well.
But no, I mean, a big reason that I wanted to come was I felt like they had obviously a young group of guys, but a group of guys that had a lot of potential that could definitely do big things in this league. And Brett Brown, the first thing he told me was that they didn't turn people over. And I think offensive rebounds has also been a problem for us. And with Mike Brown, he always talked about possession game, which is turnovers, free throws, offensive rebounds. Can you win the possession game? If you win the possession game, you give yourself a great chance to win a game. And I felt like in my first couple games, we started turning teams over. And just with the length, the athleticism on this team, I feel like just being able to fly around defensively, and obviously having someone like Vic behind you who can protect the rim, that gives you a sense of comfort knowing that at times you can gamble for steals, and if you don't get it, you still have another line of defense. So I think we've done a better job in that than they have previously throughout the season, but I think that's kind of that next step, being able to constantly win a possession game.
Yeah, I think one big thing in this game was you get out-rebounded by 20. And in the Pistons scoring runs to open each half, you get outscored 26-2. Like that makes it near impossible to win a game. They basically, we know they're going to be challenged size-wise. You lose Wemby, obviously you've lost a Wemby. but also like, in a way that more basketball teams can relate to, you've lost your starting center, and Bassey's been injured. You've got Biombo on a second 10-day, who, I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed the Bismack Biombo experience. I don't know about UAB, but like a 14-year vet setting big screens, like, come
Well,
on now.
Tom, it is
No,
a Spurs tradition to have a center with stone hands that likes to be physical.
fair.
Makes me think of the days of Dwayne Dedman, someone who could not have soft hands until halfway through his second season with the Spurs was when he was able to finally catch passes. And Bismack, I think he's got a little softer hands than Dwayne Dedman, but he is gonna put a body on you, at least for that top of the street, that top of the key screen.
Saw in his chest, which he was using to smack dudes all up and down Austin's Moody Center. Um, I and I think the interplay, right, between him and Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox was really, really interesting to watch, and especially in the opening parts of these games, they were like experimenting with a lot of that, and I thought that was sort of cool to see.
And they
Um,
talked about one of the reasons they picked him up was because of Chris Paul's familiarity with him.
yeah,
As like kind of a reason that they brought him in. Um, I think in some corners of the internet there have been whispers of Chris Paul buyout, which I think there's about anywhere from 4 to 5 days left where that might happen. But I'm also like, I don't think the team is making a move for a center that Chris Paul is familiar with, that they weren't planning on kind of keeping him around. Um, so
also think it would be kind of insane for the team to do that, given all of the no fun, traumatic parts of this season. Like, he's been an invaluable resource to this team on and off the court.
well,
I,
Tom, can we use that then as a transition into our high praise segment? Been a
for
little
sure.
somber. Let's talk some positivity here with some high praise. Welcome to high praise. Here we try to um, always focus on the positives, focus on something that we saw good, and um, I will give my first high praise today to De'Aaron Fox being on this team. Great player. We've already been singing his praises quite a bit this week. Um, One of the funny things during the press conference after the game on Friday night, when he came in to speak, it was asked about like, what's going to happen with your finger? Are you going to do surgery? Something like that. And he gave like a good answer of like, look, we're, not, we'll talk about it, but not in the plans at the moment. Yeah, then he lifted up his finger and it was completely like crooked. I was like, oh my God, this is what this guy's been playing with. And I'd say this as a guy that has many jammed fingers. Two of my fingers can no longer point straight. Um, it is annoying at the very least. So um, with him still being such a good scorer, I have just been impressed with him coming onto this team. So we'll toss to that clip real quick here of De'Aaron Fox and his finger.
Is your finger getting worse? Like, have the doctor said that it could get to a point where you're going to need to have something done, or can it kind of stay the same the rest of the year?
It's basically been the same the rest of the year. I've gone through like a workout without taping it, and the main problem is just the fact that if you throw me the ball, the first thing it's going to hit is the finger. So that's the reason that I really do tape it. But at some point, we're going to have to sit down and get it fixed because I'm not playing with tape on my dominant hand for the rest of my career. So
no thinking now that would happen before the end of the season.
I'm not sure yet.
All right, Tom, what do you got for your high praise?
Well, I'll just go off a little bit on De'Aaron here, because I mean, getting to see De'Aaron Fox in person, right? It's my first time watching him in person as a member of the Spurs, right? I've seen him before as a visitor, but honestly, I'm not paying that much attention to the visitors for the most part. I'm as Greg Popovich would say, like I'm more focused on my team and what we're doing here. And man, that guy, finger's a little messed up, yeah, but that does not change how fast he is. Which if you're talking about a professional league at the highest level, like the NBA, and you're talking about an athlete who is the est player in some category, uh, and that category is speed, which is undeniably fun to watch and also hugely impactful. I mean, we saw it down the close in that Suns game where it was like, there's just not much you can do when that guy has the ball and wants to get past you. You'd have to be a little bit faster. Got to be quicker than that. And
Mhm.
you know, huge games for him in both of these games. Um, you know, I I've thoroughly enjoyed watching De'Aaron play. Um, I've got to go. I have one here for the Austin fans, the fans in this city, man. Um, it's been a bitter cold week in Austin, Texas. It's the 35 series, it's the 35-degree series this year. And like I would have killed for 35 walking back to the car on Thursday night,
Man,
like
I mean, Tom, everyone, we carpool together, and Tom comes over to my house, ready to go, and he's wearing his pink blazer, and I'm like, "Hey, like, do you have another jacket? Like, it's pretty cold out." And Tom was like, "No, no, I'll be good." I was like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "No, I'll be good." I was like, "Okay." So we park. Well, we had a really hard time finding parking, but when we eventually park and we're walking to the stadium, Tom realizes that it's very cold outside. And I mean, you got through it. You were a champ. I mean, you weren't complaining. You just were stating the facts that it was very cold, but it was very entertaining for me to walk with you and
it
see
was
how
so
cold you were.
I was growling like DMX. I was like,
That's true.
it was rough. But like, I mean, there were events throughout the week that we attended and, got to see the Spurs engage with the community and the community engage with the Spurs. And that was like a really cool and beautiful thing. Um, I know there's a lot of, fans who still have questions, who still don't like the Spurs doing this much engagement up here in Austin. We did a full episode with Brandon James in the Spurs front office that you guys should check out if you haven't already. It's really, really fascinating look at the business side of what this team is doing here. But I think from a event perspective, from a vibes perspective, from a 16,000 plus people getting in a building to watch Spurs basketball together, uh, in a amazing venue in Austin, Texas. Um, seeing all of the work that the team is putting in to engage up here and seeing the community respond. Um, as a member of that community, it's really, really wonderful to see. And everybody was asked about Austin and the vibes here, and so just want to give you what Mitch and Keldon and KD had to say, and Keldon and KD both, having played some of their formative years uh, of basketball here in Austin, Texas.
We love Austin. I mean, it's right down the road, so I feel in some other areas of the country, those two cities almost look like one or the same area. So we love driving up here and playing. It's a beautiful arena. UT's done a great job with it, and to be able to share some of our home games with this crowd and fan base is great. Not surprised, KD went to Texas and he's one of their legends, so can't be mad sometimes when you have dual loyalties or fan bases. But we enjoy coming here and enjoyed it very much.
And Coach, one quick follow-up: better tacos, Austin and San Antonio?
Oh. I'm from Seattle, so I'll take both.
Keldon, you've been on this team for the entirety of the I-35 series. How has the environment changed or compared over the last few years that you've been coming up to play in Austin?
I feel like it's only getting better. I feel like Austin holds a special place for me. This is, this is home for me. Most of my, my first year, I was down here playing with the Austin Spurs, and just being able to come back and give back and play in this series is the 935 series is huge for me, because it feels like home away from home. I mean, the Austin community, the supporters, the Austin Spurs, they took me in as a young teenager, and really had open arms for me and my family. So Austin holds a special place for me in my heart. So being able to come down here and play is big for me.
So now we're going to just jump into questions that we have for the coming week. And, we'll now really touch on kind of Wemby being out for the season. So with him being out, what are you going to be looking forward to from this team for the rest of the season?
So I'm interested to see how they respond, on a player level, on an organizational level. And obviously, yes, this is really tough with Wemby out, but you also have, 17, 18 professional basketball players on this team, some really high level. And these are the guys that are going to be playing alongside Wemby and, holding on to the rope when he goes to the bench for the foreseeable future. So there is still so much to figure out. There is still so much of the rotation to figure out, the lineups that work, the chemistry, the pecking order, the responsibilities, who handles what. And I think this is the time to really just figure out what those non-Wemby minutes look like. What's the best we can do when he's not on the floor? And that a lot of different things go into that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's a resilience thing. It's a, there's a lot of, fans, and I understand it, saying, all right, get back in the tank. I know it sucks, but we're not going anywhere. Might as well get that draft pick as good as possible. And while I understand that sentiment, the players certainly don't do that.
Yeah,
And
we've had this saying here before: organizations tank, players don't. These players, at the end of the day, whether they're on the Spurs or not in the future, are playing for their livelihoods. They're playing for their next contract. To your point with this, Tom, my expectations honestly don't change with Wemby out there. You still need, to your point, to know the non-Wemby minutes. You still need to know who are NBA players. We've kind of talked about this all year. What's up with the perimeter defense? I thought it looked pretty good in that Suns game. I thought it went kind of gone in the Pistons game. This puts more pressure on everyone to figure out the perimeter defense. The other thing within all of this too is continuity right now is the name of the game for success in the league. So this is going to be best for figuring out that continuity with De'Aaron Fox on the team. And zooming out, I think we talked about this on Friday. This team has gone through a lot of changes, not just the recent news, but we're talking in the off season, they brought in 2 new starters. They just traded for a third. They brought in a rookie who's been overperforming what was expected of them. Had on-off injuries with Jeremy Sohan, who was a starter last year, who's now playing backup 5. Once again, we kind of talk about this a lot, but when you're zooming out and you're looking at the OKCs of the world, you're looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers, you're looking at the Boston Celtics, you're looking at these teams that are on the top tier of the league. Same with the Nuggets. They have core players and pieces that have been there for years, and we're not there yet, but we're trying to develop still what that looks like. And I think we could still develop that without Wemby there. And I think the pressure of that, pressure makes diamonds. I think the pressure of that in the long run is once again good for this team, or at least that's like the perspective I'm going to have on it. And I do want to say one other thing on this. I think there was some chatter of like, why does he have this DVT all of a sudden? Um, I can tell you from being around team officials this week, y'all, that this was unexpected news. I can tell y'all that the people we talked to on Wednesday were planning on him being there. Like it was there was no we were at the team hotel. We got to talk to some folks. Like everybody was like, yeah, Webby's like coming. And then news drops on Thursday. So this I think sometimes we think like there's like puppet master strings and everything, but like really we're dealing with a team that is also just people that is dealing with new information to come about in real time for them, and they're dealing with it as best they can. So um, that's where I'll kind of leave that. And Tom, you kind of had more on the court stuff again, so I'll let you take the next question.
Yeah, so one thing that we've talked about on this show since the Spurs acquired De'Aaron Fox is, the pairing with him and Chris Paul. And also you now have two guys who have played point guard at an all-star level on the team. And sometimes there are minutes being played where neither of them is on the court, right? And so that's something that I've been, curious about and wondering about. And after the game Friday, got a chance to ask Mitch Johnson about. And I think his answer to this question sort of reveals a bit about how much the Spurs value Steph Castle and see his growth trajectory. And although in the Friday game he only played I think 13 minutes, and that's not something that I realized until after. There's so much going on when you're at the game that can just slip past you. I'll be hand up. That happened to me. If I had seen it, past.
Same. That's why I had to rewatch the game after seeing that. And like to that point, Tom, one, I think the Spurs are known for putting players through kind of crucibles. We've brought up the Point Sohan experiment. That's kind of one of the reasons why I think of why, to my previous answer about like Wemby being out the rest of the season, like it's not by any means a blessing, but it helps answer some questions quicker, I think, which I think is helpful in team building for this team. For Stephon Castle here, they want to put him through that crucible. I don't think that giving him only 13 minutes is doing that, but he did have a couple of bad turnovers. And I think that's essentially part of why Mitch pulled him and he didn't, make much noise in the game. Plus then the game got out of hand. So, yeah.
But yeah, I do like this is a question that I've been, curious about for a while, and so very, very grateful to be able to ask it. And yeah, we'll think about what Mitch Johnson had to say here, and I think it's pretty illuminating on the decision making process.
Coach, De'Aaron and Chris are building pretty good chemistry together, and there's obviously adds a new element, right? How do you balance maximizing that pairing together and then also staggering those two so that there's sort of steady playmaking for you guys?
Yeah, I think you got, Chris and De'Aaron, you can even throw Steph into that mix, right? There's dynamic ball handlers, decision makers, one that is very young, we're trying to grow, one we've just acquired, who's kind of in his prime, we're trying to learn and tinker, as you said, and then Chris, who's seen it all and done it all. So it's going to just continue being a kind of moving, living document that'll probably change game to game, but trying to give those guys some runway to grow with each other, but also, like you said, some opportunities to play with the ball in their hands to have a little bit more volume at times.
So I have a question for you, Aaron Blackerby, because this was first time in there for you and for Zach, and I just want to say I think you both did a really excellent job. What what jumped out to you from that experience?
It's pretty fascinating. I was not there for the KD press conference after the shoot around on Wednesday. But getting to be there at the team hotel later that day, getting to be pregame and postgame for Thursday and Friday was fascinating as well. A couple things I think that were cool to see. It is you have to be aggressive, but not too aggressive on your question. And I'll say, getting to ask my first question to Keldon, I'm not gonna lie, my heart was definitely racing with nervousness. Um, and most of the time, I mean, the entire time I've never been in that room until this week. I did not realize that they're making like direct eye contact with the reporter. I was like, oh wow, you guys are like very well media trained, like, in this instance. And so to ask Keldon a question on, how does it feel to go back to Austin? Um, Talking about it as his second home. We've already talked about that clip today, but it was like making direct eye contact with me the whole time. I was like, oh man, that's incredible. And then we had Chris Paul come in, and he's a great talker. He still gave good answers. And in leading up to this week, we were kind of like prepping for like different players to ask questions to. And when I wanted to ask Chris a question. He has been like one of my favorite players to watch, even just, when we talk about like point guard, like this is like the definition of like a point guard. Like his bona fides are untouchable in my opinion. And so so I was trying to figure out like how to phrase something. And then I looked up our old doc, and I was like, oh wait, I already have, I think, like a good question that I think fits into this whole mold of things. And so I had a chance to ask him on the ways that he would look at further expanding the game between the Spurs having like a Paris week and an Austin week. Chris Paul has been a part of the NBPA for a long time. He's dealt with like working on behalf of the players with the team. I imagine in those conversations that there has always been like, how do we expand this game? And so to see him actually kind of get out of his little media train to be like, oh, think about that. I was pretty happy. And so we'll cut to that here.
Between this season playing in Paris and then also having this Austin Spurs week, what are some other ways that you'd like to see the league expand its presence?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know. It's interesting because then you start to dive into the business, right? Like when you buy season tickets, right? How many games are you paying for? Are the arenas sufficient for NBA standards and all this? How far is the drive? All this stuff. I love to be a part of those conversations. This was really a great situation, being that all the partners involved could be here. It was interesting. We played against Phoenix. Obviously, they wanted to see KD here, So I think the league has to continue to explore different ideas and ways to continue to keep fans engaged.
I mean, because we were going into it, and I didn't know if you had something, and you asked for the mic, and I was like, a lot, like watching a guy who is arguably the greatest point guard of all time, a 39-year-old legend in this game, you know, respond to your question with, "Oh, that's a good question," and sit and think about it for a second. Like that was a very cool moment for me to watch as your colleague and friend. So proud of you there. Good work. Um, it's There's a certain gravitas with guys like that, right?
Yeah, you feel it in the room. Like
The energy changes.
yeah, it's kind of it. There's no other way to explain it. Like you just said, to gravitas. Like there is um, the way they carry themselves. Same with KD, and the fact that KD came in to talk to local media when he didn't have to. I don't think people realize like He didn't have to do that. He could have just talked to the Suns media and been done. But he came in, answered questions here. Like, dude's a real one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and like, being in the room with guys like that who, I mean, we talked about this, off air a whole lot this week, but KD is a philosopher, not just on twitter.com, but like in real life too. He loves the game, and he is, um, I think, hyper aware of his place in it. And there was a great question by Corey Mose. I wanted to ask him basically, like, it seemed you talk about how much you love the game of basketball, right? And it feels like the basketball community loves you back. And we saw that Thursday, right? From the fans to the media and I think it's just a microcosm of how the community treats KD, right? Um, and so I wonder, like, can you smell those flowers? How do they appear in your life? And I'd written this down. I thought about how to deliver it, and then it was my good friend Corey Mose at KVU who asked it way better in 3 words. He was like, "You feel the love?" And I was like, "That's way better." And KD was like, "Come on, man," and gave, like, I think, a really awesome answer. So I want to start with that, and then go to sort of KD and Chris Paul both talked about the joy of playing the game. If you can be out there, you want to be out there because you never know. And these are both guys who have missed significant time with injuries. So I thought that was really, really cool to see guys of that stature in the game talk about something like that, especially in the wake of the news about Vic. So I'll leave you guys with that.
Huh? Did you feel the love tonight? Come on, man. I feel the love everywhere I go. People respect me. People respect the game of basketball and my place in it. And especially places that I actually ran through, like here, So, yeah, I hope people out here don't think I hear them or see the messages or feel the love. It's always there. I just can't sit back and bask in all of that all the time. I don't want to have a party with myself because everybody loves my game. I'm just going to appreciate it and I'll move on.
Been tough for you with the season not going as well as you thought.
Yeah, it get a little frustrating after you take an L, but overall, we get another opportunity to right the ship tomorrow and practice film, and so I'm grateful for every time I get to step on the court to trying to finish this thing off right. But yeah, after games, it get a little frustrating, and in the moment when we having a bad stretch, yeah, it get a little frustrating, but.
But you enjoy the game as much as.
Man, come on now, shit, like. It's beauty in the struggle, It's beauty in that, all of that stuff, especially when you come out on the other side of things and you realize that pressure, them hard times made you better, So I think we all pull from these experiences to get better and use them for the next game. But the worst thing we could do is, feel sorry for ourselves, Still got to put our best foot forward no matter what the record is and go out there and try to play the best ball the next day. And if you don't play great ball that day, try to do it the day after that until the season over, So that's the mindset we all try to have. Yeah, it's frustrating. But the quicker you can get over it, the better you become. And, the solutions will be, easier to come by if you, let it go, So, yeah, we think about it tonight and move on tomorrow.
I'm grateful for the journey, right, for being able to play as long as I have to get that Steals record. My wife, my parents, my brother, everybody was here last night. And it is a reminder every time I look and see the 5 hand surgeries I done had, you know what I mean, that's part of the journey, unfortunately.
Speaking of back-to-backs, at 39, you still haven't missed a game this year. Are these getting tougher as the year goes on, and would you consider ever taking one
Knock
off?
on wood. It's funny, like we said, perspective. Through a lot of adversity, surgeries I had, injuries or whatnot, I know what it's like not to be able to play, right? Like I know what it's like to sit over there on the bench and wish that you could play. So every single night that I'm blessed and God gives me the opportunity to play, I am going to play. I promise you that. So you never know how many games you got left. If it's your last game, learned that when I first came in as a rookie. There may be a kid in that arena who this might be their only chance to get a chance to see you play. So back to back or not, I was in the league when you played back to back to back. When you're thinking about getting to the NBA, you ain't thinking about sitting and resting. You're thinking about playing and hooping against the best. So that's my perspective. So is it tough? Yeah, it's tough. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Ain't but 450 spots in the league. So every chance I get an opportunity to play, I want to play.
Let's talk about the week ahead. There's going to be quite a few games. The roadie road trip will end. De'Aaron Fox at the end of it will make his first home game in San Antonio. And tonight, as we're recording this on Sunday, they are playing the weird Pelicans team. And then they're going to play them again on Tuesday. And they're 1-9 in their last 10. And 2 of those losses, though, are against sub 500 teams. I think we're going to start seeing kind of this pretty even delineation. If your team has size, we're really in trouble. If your team doesn't have size, we got a shot. This team does have size between Zion, Olynyk, and Yves Missi. So I would expect us to probably lose one of these 2 games against New Orleans. And I think one of them will be at least entertaining. What say you, Tom?
I saw something interesting about Zion. It's that, like, for as long as there's been tracking data, he is the most double-teamed player by a wide margin. The margin between him and second on this list is, I think, the same as the margin between second and 100th. His gravity is astounding to watch. So and it's especially on this Spurs team that now is piecing it together inside the paint. That's a rough condition to be meeting a team with Zion Williamson. So we'll see how it goes. I think the Spurs are going to play with good energy. I also have Guppy here to make some picks. Guppy, say hi to your fans. Say hi to the people. He's been tired this week too. He's been wanting to snuggle with Dad, and it's I've been busy, but we get to snuggle and watch the game tonight. And I think this first one is a get back game. I think the team probably spent a lot of the last 24 hours looking at film, because, like we talked about, it was more mental and communication than the other stuff. So
Energy wasn't the problem.
Energy was not the problem, and I think they can go into a building like the Pelicans and try to impose their will a little bit more and be the more composed team. And
yeah. This
so I think they win 2 games in New Orleans.
Yeah, okay. This month is going to be crazy. It's actually going to be quite the sprint to the finish of the season, with March coming up in April. A lot of back-to-backs. We're going to be getting more home games again for the Spurs. We'll have that game on Tuesday against the Pelicans, and then Wednesday turning around in Houston against Houston. Houston will also be coming off a back-to-back against the Bucks. Houston is slumping right now, though. They're 3-7 in their last 10, and I don't really know what to think of this Houston team. They can't shoot, but they play defense, and they definitely have size. And they're very athletic. I can't imagine that we win this game, especially it being in Houston. But if Jeremy Sohan keeps not hesitating from 3 and knocking them down at like a 50% clip, I'll take it. What do you got on Houston?
Mitch this week was like, yeah, it was weird because that Suns game got chippy, but Jeremy was like the cool, calm, collected one. He was like, yeah, that was weird that there was a fracas and he wasn't involved. Um, I think there will be a fracas in this game, and I think he will be involved. Um, these teams do not like each other, man, like at all. And if you're
Dude, this is fracas week.
it,
Houston, Memphis, OKC.
oh
We're getting a
man,
fight this week. We're getting a fight.
and like I was just at a hockey game last night. I saw the Texas Stars minor league team for Dallas, and they got 5 goals dropped on them in the first period, and there were about 7 fist fights in this one. Game misconduct penalties got real ugly, and I I feel like the Spurs have budding rivalries with a lot of teams, and adding a player like Wemby sort of does that, right? Everybody has you marked with a star on their calendar. Every game is a chance to prove a point, right? Um, but I think that there's enough bad blood between a bunch of different, and you've got irritants. Like you've got 2 guys on the all irritant and first team all irritant, talking about Jeremy Sohan and Dylan Brooks. Like,
Oh, I will say this too. De'Aaron Fox homecoming game with Houston in a New Jersey. He's probably going to be guarded by Dylan Brooks. I think there's going to be a little more there. But let's hop to Memphis as well. I think our losing streak to them is probably going to continue here. Between their length, athleticism, Jaren Jackson Jr. was already throwing elbows into Wemby and knocking him back. We'll see what happens with him and Bismack, and probably as Charles Bassey ramps up a little bit more on his minutes restriction. But I think this week is about to get rough. What say
yeah,
you on Memphis?
that Memphis game is gonna be uh like that's got 30-point loss written all over it to me. This is a team that has your number, and the reason that they've had your number has only gotten worse. So
I don't think
yeah,
it's 30-point loss. They're going to be playing the Knicks the night before. Like almost everybody is playing back-to-backs right now near the end of the season. Adam Silver, get your logistics department on the call. This is not the type of thing we need at the end.
jelly legs. I've been covering this league a long time. Jelly legs tends to have more of an effect on teams that shoot more, actually, I think. Um, it seems counterintuitive because a physical game is more physically demanding, but I think those teams also, like, when you can rely on brute strength, even if your brute strength is a little weaker that day, the fact that you're using it is new and different, and always difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and now we got last one. OKC Thunder, De'Aaron Fox's first home game back in San Antonio. The end of the rodeo road trip. It'll be the day after we play Memphis, and the Thunder are rolling 8-2 in their last 10. Chet Holmgren is back. And, I was at the last game where the Spurs played the Thunder without Wemby, and we surprisingly won. It was a TNT game playing. I don't think that's going to happen on this one. I'm looking for development. I'm looking for Jeremy Sohan locking people up and improving that 3-point percentage. I'm looking for Julian Champagny to keep finding his shot. I'm looking for rim pressure from De'Aaron Fox and Keldon Johnson. These are the things I'm looking for over the next week. I'm looking for guys who are going to be these core pieces. Mamu, hit open threes still, man, whenever you get time to play. So, what about you?
I think, um, I think the Spurs win 2 of these games. I think there's also a good chance that they lose 4 or even all 5 of them. Like, it could happen, right? And if that happens, then you're looking at 24 and 35, which, obviously, if you want to improve the draft lottery odds. That's not a bad thing, and you can still figure things out when you're doing that, right? But I mean the the Grizzlies game and the Thunder game are like Sharpie losses to me. Like I will be shocked if they can get either one of those. Um, and I don't know, man. I think when Wemby goes down, when Pop is done for the season, like these are all really really tough. This has been a tough year for the Spurs for a lot of different reasons. And that is like something that, after this Wemby news broke, there were reporters basically talking about like, yeah, this has been there's there's been a lot more stuff that has happened here that has made it rough for these guys. The There was initial reporting about Pop's stroke that it was like, it was with the team, right? Um, so this has been, and the conditions for both Pop and Wemby are things that can affect you outside of basketball, can be, limiting and life threatening. And you know, it's it's a hard position for the team to be in, man. So I am more just interested in how this team responds in terms of um they're playing hard, they're playing with each other. Um, a lot of guys talked this week about basketball being escape, basketball being therapy.
Well, they're getting
And
plenty of it this week. 5
yeah,
games this week is going to be plenty of escaping. So I do hope that they channel some of this into, uh, yeah, an emotional catharsis for themselves, and that they can rally together as a team. But with that being said, we're going to wrap up. Thanks everybody for listening. Like and subscribe to us. Here on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you again to the Spurs for giving us credentials and for being able to cover the team. We hope that we can do it more in the future. So with that, Tom, what do you got to say before we sign off?
I just got to say thank you to everybody, everybody who has supported my work, our work, over the last 10 years of me covering this team, and over the last 1 year of us building this. Thank you to Zach Montana, who did a fantastic job this week. Thank you to the players and coach who gave really insightful answers during a really difficult time. Thank you to the fans in Austin for, coming out, and it was really, really cool to see in my city. Thank you to the Moody Center for kicking ass. I didn't go into Moet and Chandon Lounge. I did
Another
ask,
day.
like,
Another
will my
day.
get me in there, and they were like, yeah, don't touch anything. But I mean, it was a pretty surreal week. It would have been a surreal week without surreal news, but here we are, and it was fascinating to be around the team and talking to them through all of this. Fascinating to see the event and business side of Spurs Week in Austin. And I'm so grateful to we're at 700 subscribers now on YouTube, to the people who watch and listen and comment and engage with what we're doing. It's really humbling, it's really gratifying, and we feel the love. So thank you guys.